Hey everyone. So today we're going to talk about the neurophysiology of Alzheimer's. So I'll start by going over Alzheimer's and what it is, and then we'll talk about the neurophysiology, specifically molecular basis, apoptosis, and the role these cells called astrocytes play. So basic overview, it is a neurodegenerative disorder with no cure. It is typically seen most commonly through memory decline and memory loss and disorientation, as well as difficulty learning and some personality changes. I want to quickly point out that Alzheimer's and dementia are not the same thing. Dementia is a symptom of Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's is really the underlying disease of that's causing dementia. All right, so most popular, I think, physiological mechanism that we think of when we talk about Alzheimer's is beta amyloid protein plaques. So these are protein plaques that develop in between neurons, and they really inhibit the proper functioning of neurons in two ways. Firstly, through communication. The physical buildup of plaque causes communication between neurons to be significantly decreased and inhibited. The second way is that these plaques can actually cause the neurons that are around it to be susceptible to excitotoxicity. So the neurons around these plaques can be susceptible to overstimulation and therefore not function properly. And I also want to point out that beta amyloid proteins do develop naturally throughout our lifetime. So these plaques and this protein is not just specific to people with Alzheimer's. We just find a greater number of proteins, and of course, the plaque buildup in the brains of people with Alzheimer's. And research shows that NMDA receptors may also be responsible for the release and control of the production of these beta amyloid proteins that build up in the brain. All right, so apoptosis. We've all probably heard of apoptosis in one way or another, probably in high school biology, but simply put, it is programmed cell death. And there is some sort of distortion in folks with Alzheimer's. So research isn't 100% sure just what happens, the mechanism of how apoptosis works in patients with Alzheimer's, but there is a distorted expression of the protein that induces cell death. And so there's some irregularity as well with the, internal and external pathways for apoptosis and how that's achieved in people with Alzheimer's. So there's just a different pattern of apoptosis, and cell death is not regular in folks with Alzheimer's. And of course, going back to beta amyloid plaques, research shows that there is some sort of connection between these beta amyloid plaques and apoptosis. All right, so astrocytes. So first of all, an astrocyte is a glial cell that helps to support healthy environments within the brain. It has a pretty important role in making sure that there is homeostasis in the brain. And astrocytes do undergo structural changes as a result of damage. And specifically in Alzheimer's, we see internal changes of these astrocytes, specifically those that are surrounded by beta amyloid plaques. So we see that this atrophy of astrocytes can lead to the degeneration of the blood-brain barrier. They also play a role in neural communication, and in Alzheimer's, their function is impaired, leading to inhibiting and excitatory symptoms of the disease. So lastly, can you prevent Alzheimer's? Short answer, no. There is a genetic component that is random, but it's mainly not passed down. Although youth, like young onset Alzheimer's is thought to be passed down genetically, but there's some things that you can do to help, such as being social and having a good social life, and making sure that you are taking care of your mental health. So that is all the info I have on Alzheimer's. I really hope that this was informative.